patterns of cause-effect relationship. He gets from Descartes, Galileo, the deductive system ideal. Okay? He adds to that his methodological naturalism, that generalization, that everything is explicable in those terms. And off he goes. That's there. Those three ingredients. Yeah. All right, well, how does this actually work? And you have to come at it, first of all, in terms of his epistemology. And you can trace this quite readily in the anthology, the way he works us through the whole process of origin and development of human thought. Starting with sensation. And granted what I've said about method, it's obvious that he's going to start there. One, he's an empiricist. But if he's interested in cause-effect mechanisms, then the first consciousness that we have that we can start talking of causes of are our physical sensations. Physical sensations caused by something physical in the external world. So he sees all of our sensations as the effects in the human self of physical processes in the external world. That is to say, particular, and I stress particular because he is going to be a nominalist. The influence of on is explicit in Hobbes. Okay? Particular objects have particular qualities which cause changes in our sense organs, the nervous system, the brain, and that stimulus produces reflex responses from what he calls the heart. You know how your heart pounds with the appropriate stimulus? You see? Responses produced by the heart in thought or overt action or both. So he has a purely causal explanation in which our sensations, our images that he calls phantasms, our sensations, our images, the phantasms, are mental states with sense qualities. And these phantasms involve awareness of both primary qualities and secondary qualities. And this distinction becomes crucial from this point on in empiricism. Primary qualities are the qualities that objects have, bodies have. Now, in the mechanistic science of that day, it's going to be Newtonian science. What are the intrinsic properties of physical objects? Well, what is matter like? Well, matter just has spatial properties. Size, shape, density, weight, spatial occupancy properties. And consequently, it is those that are the primary qualities. But those primary qualities, the qualities that bodies have the capacity to produce additional effects in the consciousness. So that we see not just shape, but coloured shapes. You see? Not just a surface, but we feel a rough or smooth surface. Not just a body that moves from one place to another, but makes sound in our consciousness. So the secondary qualities are the qualities that are dependent on our 5 kinds of sense capacities. Colour, to do with the sight. Sound, to do with hearing. Texture, to do with touch. Taste, and smell. 5 senses. Now, his point is that when we therefore talk of a coloured shirt, my blue shirt, we fancy it is blue. But the shirt isn't blue. It is rather that the shirt causes you to see blue. It appears to you blue, but it's not blue. This is talking about what becomes known as the subjectivity of secondary qualities, the objectivity of primary qualities. That's what's going to make it possible when we get to Berkeley, for Berkeley to say, is the tree that falls in the forest when there's nobody around to hear, make any noise? Because if noise is a secondary quality, it's subjective. Is there a noise as noise when there's nobody to hear it? Nobody on whom the sound waves registers in consciousness. So sensation then is the beginning of it. Now, after the cessation of the cause, you stop looking at my shirt, but you still have a mental image of my shirt. This is simply the product of decaying processes, changes in the sense organs and the brain. It's what he calls imagination. Notice that the term imagination at this juncture is simply nothing but having mental images. Having mental images. You don't get the idea of imagination as creativity until you get to Romanticism, 19th century. You see, that begins with people like Kant. But you don't get it in the Enlightenment. Imagination is simply images left over, dying off, getting confused, mixed up with each other, like the image I have of a fairy giraffe with butterfly wings mixes up all sorts of other decaying images. So imagination then. Operative in waking, when we remember something, and the picture comes to mind. Or in sleep, when we dream something, pretty vividly. This is all decaying sense images. And he moves from that into what he calls reason. Reasoning. You think, what is reasoning? Well, at the conscious level, reasoning is simply a process where one idea is followed by another idea. If I say 2 plus 2 equals, well, that process ends up saying 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. But you see, that mental conscious process is caused by brain activity. The brain, somehow or other, combines what ought to be combined and separates what ought to be separated. So it's by virtue of causal processes that the causal stimulus of 2, followed by an added causal stimulus of 2, produces causal stimulus to the idea of 4. So that reasoning is entirely a process determined by brain causes. Okay? Brain causes. We have no way of originating ideas, because consciousness is entirely a byproduct of brain processes. So there are no innate ideas in the consciousness. There's no a priori knowledge independent of the cause-effect processes producing sensation. And so his pure empiricism is established. What about language? What about language? Now here's the place where the nominalism becomes explicit. Because he says in as many words that words are just particular signs that stand for groups of particular things. So that in his, not in the Leviathan, but in his work, The Elements of Philosophy, he says the universality of one name applying to a whole class of things, the universality of one name has been the cause that men think that things are themselves universal. But it's plain there is nothing universal but names, which are called indefinite nouns. Because we don't limit them, but leave them to be applied by the hearer. But a universal is just a particular name that applies to a whole group indiscriminately. And he's very plain about that. He says there are no such things as abstract names. So he's rejecting conceptualism. We don't name abstract ideas. What we have is simply general ideas. So that words name whole groups of things in general by virtue of their similarities, but without reference to any universal concept held in abstraction in the mind, and certainly without reference to any real universal. So he's explicitly nominalistic. Okay, does that make sense? Notice how true he is to his method. Start with a methodological assumption. Cause-effect explanations for everything. Okay. Start with sensations caused the way they are. Brain processes, neural processes, causing everything that follows from that. And the use of language, signs, is simply part of the response mechanisms, in the stimulus response mechanisms that experience of the world produces response, verbal responses. And the sophisticated responses that humans have involve language. Independent of sense experience. Yeah, if everything is cause-effect through physical processes, then there cannot be ideas originating independently of causal processes. Right. The illustration of? Using the color blue. The reason I ask is because we also use last week and then yeah. And that has a different meaning to me as a scientist because the line blue pigments where there are blue pigments. Yeah. No, there's no magic, I think, in using the example of blue rather than yellow, red, black, white. Yeah, I don't think they were aware of the pigmentation issue. Now, having said that, there may be some significance in the fact that the prime example used wherever we're talking the primary and secondary qualities is colour. That is to say, the sense of vision, sense of sight. Because it's much easier when you're talking of sight and colour perception to say that colour is subjective, granted the physics of colour vision. It may be a little harder with the sense of taste or touch. Yeah, that's a different thing. Okay, David?
How would account for his weakness in religion? Would you say it's more, I know you would say it's very obvious, but how do you account for that?
Well, you see, the semen religionis is the effect, the fact that religions arise from some sort of seed, is the effect of the sense of a deity, some idea of a first cause. But that sense of a deity is the result itself of causal inquiry, by virtue of which we keep asking, what's the cause of that cause, and push it all the way back. You see? So what he's saying is that this type of thinking is so characteristic of human beings, I was going to say so native to human beings, so characteristic, that we push it all the way back, come up with the idea of God, and that's the cause of the sense of deity, cause of religion. Now, why would it be so natural to humans to think causally? Well, I suspect it's simply because we experience causal processes from the very beginning. I mean, the youngest infants soon begin to realize that certain things they do produce responses. You see. I remember when our grandson was about 3 months old. I remember lying on the floor with him and hovering over him and going goo-goo-ah to him. He looked up at me and made goo-goo-ah. Stimulus response, cause, effect. And they're just aware of that from the beginning. So we learn that cause-effect type thing. It's built into the way we experience the world around us. So he'd give a thoroughly empiricist explanation. You don't need a Kantian category of cause and effect to have. Okay, now, that much is simply foundation. Now we get to where he wants to go. You see, granted the things that are driving him, he wants to get to talking about the body politic, about ethics and politics. But he moves into that by talking of the human person and coming up with this notion of consciousness, because all of this business of sensation, imagination, reasoning, and using language all presupposes consciousness. Whatever else you say about a human being in a materialistic account of human nature or any other kind of account, human beings have consciousness. What is the cause of consciousness? That's the question. And he argues that consciousness is simply a byproduct, an epiphenomenon. That is to say, it is an appearance produced by, added to, bodily existence. Yeah, consciousness is simply a byproduct of brain processes. Just as sensations are byproducts of brain processes, and reasoning is a byproduct of brain processes, so all consciousness is a byproduct of brain processes. Physical changes produce consciousness. Now, sometimes directly, as in the case of sensations. Sometimes indirectly, as for instance, where the causal processes, physical changes, have involuntary physical effects, so that we automatically breathe, and there are physical reflexes that our nerves and limbs produce that we become aware of after the fact. You see? So sometimes the originating cause directly produces conscious states, sometimes indirectly produces conscious states, and among the conscious states produced are desires and aversions. Desires and aversions. Maybe the ideas of Thomas Hobbes produce aversion in your mind. Maybe attraction. You see? But the point is that experiences don't simply register cognitive content. Their effect on us physiologically is such that they produce an emotional reaction. He thinks of the brain as the seat of consciousness, sensation, thought, the heart as the seat of aversion and desire, of the emotions. And it's from those desires that out of those desires that we act. So that human action is not governed by reason. Human action is governed by passion, by the emotions, desires. Now, that again seems to be a natural consequence of the way he's thinking. And so on page 85, you can see how he enumerates all sorts of different desires. And you can see that he has a psychology of the emotions that's pretty well worked out. And that raises questions about freedom and determinism. About freedom and determinism. And he speaks of freedom in two senses. One, when I'm free from external constraints, free to do what I desire, that's freedom. Now, even though my desires cause my actions, my actions are caused. But he takes freedom to mean self-caused, an inner self-determination, caused by my own desires, appetites, passions. There's a second sense of freedom that he explores a little bit when we make a decision. Make a decision. But what is it to make a decision? A choice. Freedom of choice. What's that? Well, there are times when we have alternating desires. What am I going to order from that menu? What am I going to pick up over there in Anderson College? You have a choice to make. And in that alternation of desires, you move first in one direction, then in the other direction, sort of seesawing, teeter-tottering between the two. In the consciousness, you're deliberating. Well, I want this because, but I like this because, the deliberation goes on. And choice is simply one desire outweighing the other. In that emotional seesaw, you simply give way to one desire. And the last desire is the one that wins, and you say you've chosen that. So the sense of being free to decide is simply a byproduct of the ambiguity of your own desires. The sense of being uncaused is caused by alternating desires. But you are not free in the sense of having uncaused actions, uncaused choices. There is an inner determinism that runs all the way through. Okay, this is sometimes known as soft determinism. Well, it's on that basis that he comes out as a psychological egoist. A psychological egoist is one who pursues self-interest, and that's an empirical generalization. Egoism is the view that egoism is about pursuing self-interest, primarily, dominantly, the bottom line is self-interest. Psychological egoism is simply a descriptive assertion. It's a psychological fact we do. As distinct from ethical egoism, which would say we ought to. Okay? He's a psychological egoist. He's not saying we ought to pursue self-interest. No. In fact, later he'll deny that. But he is a psychological egoist. We do pursue self-interest. It is our fears that drive us. It's the desire for self-preservation that drives us. Self-interest. What we desire, we think of as good. What we dislike, we think of as bad. So while we might have some common goods like survival, we have a lot of very different goods and bads. And so we have a lot of ethical relativism between us. But we're drawn perpetually